Ever feel like you're just caught in that loop, scrolling, seeing everyone else's highlights, and kind of wondering, why am I not there yet?
hmm It's a really common feeling.
Okay, so let's really dig into that today. We've got some really interesting source material that looks at exactly this, the power of focusing on yourself.
Yeah, managing your own energy, basically, and finding that personal strength.
What's so interesting, I think, is this core idea that lots of us are just, well, leaking energy.
Without even realizing it, pouring it into all this external noise instead of, fueling our own growth.
Precisely. So our mission for this deep dive is to pull out the key strategies, the main insights from this source.
Give you some actionable ways to maybe shift that focus back inward.
Yeah, to help you understand why you might feel stuck and maybe, just maybe, how to start breaking free.
Finding more of that personal freedom we're all kind of looking for.
So the material talks about this cycle of distraction.
That tendency we have to get hooked on the outside world. Think about how automatic it is to look outside for, well, validation. Or just comparison.
It's almost a reflex, isn't it? You wake up, grab the phone.
And bam, instant comparison. Where do I stack up against their perfect-looking life?
That immediate, am I doing okay? Are they ahead? Feeling.
And underneath that, psychologically speaking, is often that need for approval, right?
Definitely. You start overthinking everything you do, worrying about judgment.
Feeling like you have to justify yourself all the time.
It's exhausting just thinking about it, all that mental energy.
Energy that the source says is like this finite resource, like money in the bank.
And it could be invested back into yourself, couldn't it?
Exactly. Every thought about what others are doing, every worry, every time you get sucked into distractions, it's like making a withdrawal.
And the scary part is how unaware we often are that this bleeding is happening.
Yeah, you just feel tired or maybe a bit flat, but you don't connect the dots.
The source points out so many of these drains too, social media, obviously.
That's a big one. But also things like gossip, constantly seeking approval, getting tangled in drama.
Even just pointless conversations, or that need to always prove yourself.
Right. It all adds up. These little things we do every day.
And that comparison trap we mentioned. The source really hits hard on how looking at someone else's highlight reel makes our own journey feel, well, less than.
Yeah, like it's not enough. And that feeling could just keep you stuck.
But the text argues it's not about lacking potential, is it?
Not at all. It's about where your energy is going. It's misdirected.
Okay, so we see the pattern. Focus outward, energy drains away. How do we start to, shift things?
Awareness. That's the first step the source emphasizes.
Just noticing.
Yeah, really honestly looking at your day, how much time is spent on the phone.
Yeah.
How often do I get pulled into conversations that go nowhere?
When do I feel that urge for someone else to say, good job? It takes some real honesty, I guess.
Totally. You have to recognize these things for what they are. Time wasters, energy drainers.
Confidence killers, even.
Exactly. Seeing that clearly is crucial. That's step one.
Then what, once you're aware?
Disengagement. Making a conscious choice to step back from the noise.
And that feeling that you have to explain yourself all the time.
Letting go of that, too. It's about choosing not to engage.
That sounds hard for a lot of people.
It can be.
Yeah.
But the source connects this directly to getting back control. Control of your energy, your focus.
It contrasts people who are really locked in on their own goals.
Yeah, with those who are always kind of looking over their shoulder, chasing approval. Big difference in energy.
Okay, here's something the source talks about that I found really interesting, that psychological shift when you stop reacting so much.
Oh, yeah, that's huge. When you stop feeling the need to jump on everything.
What happens then?
Well, the text says you get like a clearer mind. Your energy shifts. You don't feel so drained all the time.
Makes sense.
And interestingly, other people apparently notice this shift in you.
Because the dynamic changes, right? If
Yeah.
you're not playing the same game of seeking validation or getting involved in their issues.
Exactly, which leads to the next point. Actively protecting that energy.
Being more selective.
Very selective. The source stresses that not everyone and not every situation deserves your reaction or your energy.
It mentions some people kind of drain energy on purpose.
Well, consciously or not sometimes. Through drama, needing constant attention. Or maybe they just feel uncomfortable when they see someone else growing.
And it warns about those connections that feel unbalanced, too.
Yeah, the people who only show up when they need something. Or the ones who just love to gossip.
It's a good reminder that not all connections actually help you. Some can slow you down.
Or weaken you. Or just mess with your peace, Being aware of that is part of protecting your energy.
Now, this next idea is fascinating. Silence. Not just quiet, but silence as like a power move.
Yeah, I love that framing. It's not about not talking, it's about discipline, control.
How does silence become powerful? The source says it makes people wonder.
Right. When you don't just fill the space, people become curious about what you're thinking. It can actually build respect.
And it lets you observe more.
Exactly. You see what people do, not just what they say. Actions versus words. It gives you space for that.
So it's about pausing more, listening more.
Mm-hmm. The source suggests practical things. Pause before you react.
Mm.
Let people wonder sometimes. Observe more. Talk less.
Walk away from pointless arguments.
Yes, that too. And doing this actually protects your energy.
How so?
Well, it keeps you out of needless conflict. It saves you from saying stuff you regret later.
Oh yeah, hasty words.
Right. And it helps you keep a handle on your emotions.
The source also talks a lot about the strength in walking away and detachment. Letting go is tough, though.
Super tough, especially when you're emotionally invested. But the text argues that holding on to things that aren't working, that just keeps you stuck.
So walking away isn't weakness?
No, the source frames it as real power, protecting your dignity, reclaiming your focus, not confronting, just removing yourself.
And it says this can actually kind of shock people who took you for granted.
Yeah, your absence makes them realize what they lost, but the main benefit is for you, emotional freedom.
Which ties into detachment. Right. The source clarifies this isn't about not caring.
Exactly. It's about caring differently, shifting your energy to what you can actually influence your own peace.
Accepting that your peace is your job, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because when you're too emotionally attached, the source says you give other people power over how you feel.
So detachment gives you back that internal control.
Pretty much. It lets you stay calmer when things get chaotic, protects your energy, helps you make better decisions because you're not reacting purely on emotion.
How do you actually do that, though? Practice detachment.
The text gives some steps, like stop feeling you need to explain everything. Let go of having specific expectations of others.
Control your reactions. Pause, breathe, then respond.
Mm-hmm. And stay in your lane. Focus on your own stuff.
It all seems to point back to this core idea. Focus inward to grow.
Absolutely. The source is clear. Real success, real progress, it's built quietly. When no one's watching, but you're putting in the work.
It contrasts the people distracted by comparing.
Yeah, with those who are just locked in, focused on their own thing.
That's a powerful image. Shifting your energy from watching them to doing your work.
Feeding your mind with purpose, not just junk food distractions.
And the source says there's no perfect time to start, right?
No, just now. The people who really focus on themselves, they act before they feel ready.
Because it's about self-improvement, not showing off.
Exactly. Which leads to that idea of the silent power of discipline.
Not flashy discipline.
No, the quiet kind. The getting up early when you don't want to, the staying late, the stuff nobody sees.
It's about proving it to yourself, not anyone else.
Right. And the advice is to cut out the noise, the distractions, to make space for that internal work.
Mastering focus, guarding your energy.
That's the foundation. Being able to shut out the noise and point your energy inward. The text warns that if you're always looking for validation outside,
You lose yourself.
yeah, you lose touch with your own core.
And real power, then, isn't controlling others.
It's controlling yourself.
Mm.
Your emotions, thoughts, focus. Stillness isn't weakness. It's awareness. It's discipline.
Knowing when not to react.
Mm-hmm. That calm silence can actually shift the power dynamic in a situation. It all ties back to letting go of needing approval.
Or understanding or justification from others.
Yeah, there's a lot of freedom in that. Just move quietly. Build in private.
And all these practices together help build, like, an unshakable self.
That's the idea. Being able to stay steady even when things outside are chaotic.
By pausing, detaching from approval, letting go of the past.
Observing more than speaking. All those things we've talked about.
And when you make that fundamental shift, focus completely inward, the source says it changes everything.
You move differently. You operate differently. You let go of needing everyone else to sign off on your life.
And that idea of walking away comes up again.
Yeah. Revisited as wisdom, not weakness. Walking away from draining arguments, from people who don't respect you, from situations that just aren't right for you.
Create space.
Create space for better things, and you take your power back.
And the silence and observation piece, too.
Reinforced as control. Understanding things without having to constantly talk or defend yourself. It's about protecting your inner space,
Being really intentional about where your focus goes.
mindful of what you let into your world, you know, and being disciplined enough to remove yourself from things that disturb your peace.
So self-discipline and mindset are really the bedrock here.
Totally. Discipline keeps you on track, helps you resist the easy distractions when you have a bigger purpose.
And the mindset piece.
That's about actively training your mind, challenging those doubts, those fears, those limiting beliefs you might have.
Focusing on thoughts that empower you instead. Developing that winner's mentality.
Yeah, taking action instead of just waiting. Staying committed to your own vision.
And again, doing the work quietly, moving in silence.
Right. Avoiding the extra pressure and negativity that can come from broadcasting everything.
So ultimately, the message seems to be relentless focus on your own growth.
That's the core of it. Constant self-improvement is what really moves the needle.
Okay, so let's wrap up the key takeaways from this deep dive. What stands out?
Definitely the huge importance of that inward focus. Managing your energy like the precious resource it is.
The power of silence and detachment, using them strategically.
Yeah, and underlying it all, that inner discipline and cultivating a growth-focused mindset.
Really powerful stuff. Okay, so for you listening, now that we've explored this power of turning inward, here's something to think about.
What's maybe one specific area, just one, where you could consciously shift your focus and energy, starting like today?
And how might that quiet action, that internal shift, start to reshape things for you down the road?
It's definitely food for thought. This deep dive is, just the start.
Yeah, maybe take some time to reflect on these ideas. Notice your own patterns. Where does your focus usually go? How do you react?
It could be the beginning of living in a much more intentional and empowered way.